Hello everybody, this is Anmol and today I'm going to talk about market prediction using a new mining approach. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, what is market prediction? Market prediction is the act of trying to determine the future value of a company's stock or other financial instruments. So when I refer to financial instruments, it could be bonds, stocks or even debentures. So the next question that comes to my mind is, why do we have to predict the market? Successful prediction of a stock's future price could yield significant profit. This is the most important aspect of as to why do we have to make successful market predictions. The next thing that appears is, how do we do it? So there are basically two main analysis techniques or prediction methods, as we could say. These are the fundamental analysis and technical analysis. So to begin with, we'll talk about fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis is a technique that lays focus to the fundamental aspects of a company. So those fundamental aspects could be the company's revenue, its profits, its debts, or even its position in the market. So furthermore, fundamental analysis, it lays focus not only on the qualitative aspects of a company but also on the quantitative aspects of its stock. So when we're talking about qualitative aspects, it could refer to as the company's categorization as a blue chip company or a penny stock company. When we're talking about the quantitative aspects, it could refer to the company's stock's current value, as a result of which the company's market capitalization is based on. Furthermore, there's an assumption in fundamental analysis that the company's current value does not imply the company's actual value. So when we're talking about the current value, it means the company's current market price. But when we're talking about the actual value, it's talking about the qualitative concepts. That is that a company is categorized as blue chip, but currently due to some market vulnerabilities, the stock value is down. Furthermore, it is based on a philosophy that if a company operates well, it should be rewarded with additional capital. So if a company is working well, it's got good revenues, it's earning good profits, so there'll be more people putting money in that company. As a result, the company's stocks will rise and thus leading to surge in its price. Next, moving on to technical analysis. It is a method that focuses on the technical aspects of a particular stock. So when we're talking about technical aspects, they could be analyzing statistics that are generated by market activity, such as past prices and volumes. They could also refer to identifying patterns using certain charts and tools that are used by technical analysts. Furthermore, in technical analysis, we believe that if we have data of the past performance, we could very well predict the future performances. So it's like the past performances ultimately affect the future performances in some way or the other. Moving on, we'll talk about prediction systems. So there are basically three dimensions in which these systems are categorized. These are the input data, the prediction goal, and the prediction horizon. Input data. So the input data, it has to be based on something particular. So there are three categories in which the input data is based on. It is either based on market prices, based on analyzing news content, or based on a combination of both the market prices as well as analyzing news content. Next, moving on, we have prediction goals. So the prediction goal is the ultimate goal of why we are doing the prediction. So it could be to realize the future stock price, could be to find out the volatility of the prices in the future of a particular stock, or it could be to find the market trend. So whether the stock market price for a particular stock, is it going up or is it going down? Next, moving on, we have prediction horizon. Prediction horizon, as the name implies, it stands for the range of a time. So it is the time span in which the prediction would be valid. So there are two categories of prediction horizon. We can classify it as short term or long term. When we're talking about short term, it could mean that that prediction is valid anywhere from 5 minutes to 1 hour of news release. But when we're talking about long term, this means that the prediction is valid anywhere between 24 hours to a few weeks of news release. Next we have prediction system classes. The prediction system classes classifies the incoming news. So whatever news we have, that can be classified into two basic classes, that is the up class and the down class. Any news that makes the price of the stock surge or move upwards would be classified as an up class news. Any news article or item that makes the price of a particular stock fall or go down, it could be put in a class called down class. These classes are collectively referred to as predefined classes or default classes. Okay, next we have news-based prediction system phases. So basically there are two phases for news-based prediction system. These are the training phase and the operational phase. To begin with, there'll always be a training phase before an operational phase. So training phase is something like a testing phase, and operational phase is something like the actual development or the production phase. So training, we will talk about training phase to begin with. In training phase, a set of training data is prepared. So this training data in our case is the pre-classified news and market information such as market prices. Furthermore, these labeled news and possibly marketing medical data will be fed into the classifier for training. Moving on, we have the operational phase that follows the training phase. In operational phase, one of the predefined classes we talked about before will be assigned to the incoming news. The training classifier would then be ready to get a piece of news and assign a class to it in the operational phase of the system. So basically the class assignment takes place in the operational phase rather than the training phase. However, to make the system ready, as I said before, the operational phase, a classifier should be trained in the training phase. So it's like the training phase which is then followed by the operational phase. Moving on, we'll talk about components of a prediction system. So there are three basic components of prediction system. These are news labeling, classifier input generation, and classification. So news labeling, it's nothing but an attempt to identify the class that each news article belongs to and label them accordingly. So to assign labels, we can do it in two ways. It can either be done manually or it can be done automatically. When we're talking about manual labeling, there will be some people called financial experts who have deep knowledge in the financial domain. They will read out certain news articles and assign a class based on their opinion. When we're talking about automated news labeling, then the news as it comes, it will be having a particular timestamp. So for example, a news comes on the first day of a week and a news comes on the fourth day of a week. So the news on the first day of a week will have a timestamp before the news on the fourth day of a week, and thus they get labeled. Moving on, these methods applied in news labeling, they are further affected by the prediction goals. So how do we actually get affected? We first need to consider why exactly are we predicting it. So if the interest is to detect the impact of news on market volatility, the price changes should be analyzed and the corresponding labels such as high impact and low impact assigned to the news correspondingly. On the other hand, if a classification is just based on market trends in the sense is whether the market is going up or the market is going down, prices are analyzed accordingly to discover the news impact on the direction. The other thing that affects is prediction horizon. Prediction horizon, it affects the selecting time interval to process the market prices. So for example, if the goal is to predict the stock price at tomorrow's closing, so for India the stock market's closing is 3:30 p.m. So if I have to predict a particular stock price tomorrow at closing and I start off today at closing, so I'll have around 24 hours to predict the news. So this will be this will be something like a prediction horizon. On the other hand, if I'm talking about short-term prediction, the time interval can be 5 to 20 minutes after the news release. So that's really short and it has to be performed quickly. Next we can see the diagram as we've got news, we've got historical data collected, and according to that some experts, they will label the news. The news after getting labeled is called categorized news, as you can observe. Okay, moving on, we have something called the classifier input generation. So we have the classifier, and there has to be some sort of input that has to be fed to the classifier. So what is that input and how do we generate it? We'll talk about that here. So it's like the success of any classifier in generating an accurate result is dependent on the way the input data is presented. So there has to be some specific ways in which the input data is to be presented. It cannot be a random haphazard form and we just fill in the input values. Specific features of the input data are selected to represent the whole document. This is a very important point, because when we're talking about the data as a whole is huge. So what we need to select from it is the important features or distinct characteristics that can make the data stand out. So what we do, we'll select some specific features that represents the whole document. So for example, this is an important question that we generally ask. The classifier is expected to find the answer of the question, and the question is, the current situation of the market is X and the current news has the content phi. So what would be the possible impact of this piece of news in the selected stock? So for example, we consider the stock market as of now. So we've taken a share, for example, of ITC, and the current stock, the stock price is 350. Moving on, the current news about ITC, we receive a news on ITC that they're planning to expand to 3 more nations. So that news would have a positive impact on the stock prices of ITC. So how will that be? So after this news, there will be a lot of people buying these stock ITC shares, as a result of which the prices of the stock will surge, and there will be an upward market trend. So further ahead, if we classify news, there are 2 important approaches we need to follow. We can classify news based on news content, or we can classify news based on the combination of news and numerical data. So in the first approach, the news content alone is used as the input data source, and in the second approach, it's the combination of the news, market data such as stock price at the time of news release, the closing price, and change indicator values, all together form the input of the classifier. Okay, so now we talk about like representing a news section consists of 2 main tasks. Okay, so 2 main tasks are, the first task is feature selection. As we see, feature selection is nothing but from a set of variables, we're selecting a few features that will represent a piece of news. These features are the most important and distinct points of that particular article or document in a classification problem. And these features convey that the document can be best represented in this minimized form. Furthermore, features are selected using the following approach. So we could use something called a term dictionary. How do we generate a term dictionary? In a term dictionary, we'll select a few terms from the news article that distinctly represents that article, and these terms are basically selected by a few people who have good financial expertise and are professionals in that field. So usually a group of financial experts select these terms, and for each category there exists a set of special terms that, if excess, can have adverse effects on a particular stock. So if there are some good keywords, they could make the particular stock rise, and if there are some bad keywords, it could make it fall. Yeah, the next feature we have is the feature weighing. So for example, if we have a bag of keywords and there are about 20 keywords, so 10 keywords if I know are good and 10 keywords are bad, out of those 10 keywords, all the 10 wouldn't be having the same weightage. So there would be some keywords that will be having a weightage or effect value that is higher than the other keywords. So what we do in feature weighing is, we would assign weights to these selected features, whatever those 20 features are. Then these weighted vectors will be passed as inputs to the classifier. So basically, in simple words, feature weighing is nothing, it's a process of assigning values to the selected terms. And in some cases, we can assign weights using Boolean values, or generally we do it using the natural numbers on a scale of 10. So that could be anywhere between 1 to 10. Okay, next we could see the diagram. The categorized news, as we talked before, is then fed to the classifier input generator. What this classifier input generator does, it will help us to generate the input values for the actual classifier in the operational phase. Okay, so when we're talking about classification can be performed in two ways. To begin with, we can classify on the basis of the number of classes. So initially, we talked about the up class and the down class. Similarly, as we go in processing the news generally, the goal is to classify news into two classes, either good news or bad news. So if you have two classes, the good news and the bad news, we can in similar ways assign keywords. So now if we have certain keywords that are not affected in news at all, so we could even add an extra class called a neutral class to just make a classification more accurate. Then we'll have three classes. Now suppose we have few keywords that are very extreme, so they're extremely good or maybe extremely bad. So we could add two further classes, making it from 3 to 5, and those classes could be something like very bad and very good classes, and thereby increasing the efficiency and accuracy. Okay, the other way is using classification algorithm. Classification can be analyzed based on the classification algorithm, as is in the case of support vector machine or decision trees. Okay, so here we have the overall view of a news-based prediction system. So to begin with, as we previously talked, we have the news, the historical data. So we perform the news labeling, and this gives us the categorized news. This categorized news is fed to the input generator, and the label attribute values that is obtained as an output from the input generator becomes the most important aspect, because this is the ultimate input that is fed to the classifier along with the new news, and thereby we generate the news labels as we talked about, and this helps us in predicting the market. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that this particular stock market prediction problem is a very attractive problem. This particular area, it's all open. There's a lot of news mining being performed these days. So basically, considering the news impact, that is considering the impact of news on analyzing the stock market behavior, it leads to more precise predictions, and as a result, it could help you achieve significant profit. So based on the keyword classification, we can thus obtain information regarding the market trend. In this presentation, the news-based prediction system phases and the components provide us with the final classes for news categorization, and they thus enable us to predict better. Thank you.